Alright guys, this is a video strategy for Lost Island's LR-5 Sentinel Droid on hard mode with just melee for DPS. The range strategy is much easier and the general boss fight is much easier with ranged, however melee gives much more of a challenge, and this is what I've got for you. Our group consists of a Sentinel DPS, a Guardian DPS, a Guardian tank and a Sage healer, obviously for the Republic. So I hope you guys find this helpful, and I'm going to go through all of the tactics for this fight here.
Alright.
So to start off with, the tank needs to jump in and turn the boss so that he's facing the opposite way to everyone else in the group, and then the DPS can jump in afterwards and start DPSing down. In terms of positioning, throughout the fight, the melee DPS and the healer always need to be behind the boss, or a boss's distance away from the tank. So this is a perfect positioning with the DPS behind the boss and the tank on the other side. So the first move that you need to look out for here is plasma arcs. So these blue targets appear on the floor. After about 2 seconds they'll turn into a ball of electricity, which does reasonable damage if you stand in them, so these need to be moved out of as soon as possible. These balls do actually grow in size, so just standing on the edge of the AoE won't actually save you, because they'll grow and they'll still cover you. So at this stage the tank needs to then move the boss onto the next area of grey floor that you can find. We went in clockwise, starting on the left hand side, so the tank first moves the boss over onto the left hand pillar where you can see those Colto tanks there, and with the DPS always following behind the boss, never going in front with the tank. Now the main move that you need to watch out for is a move called Incinerate, and you can see it being cast here. Those two balls of fire that are being shot through the air in the upper left hand side of the screen, that's what it looks like. This ability is a channeled ability. Like I said, it's called Incinerate, and it can be interrupted. It's channeled, and for the first tick of the channel it will put 1 stack of damage. After 2 ticks it will be 2 stacks, and after 3 ticks it will be 3 stacks. 3 stacks will nuke down even a tank's health in a matter of seconds. So the first importance is it's actually an AoE attack, so when it lands on the tank it spreads AoE damage. Anyone stood near will also take all of the stacks that the tank takes. This is why it's so important that the DPS always stay behind the boss, which is enough distance away that the AoE damage won't actually touch the melee DPS or the healer. And this is vital because the healer's job will become almost impossible if DPS are taking all of the stacks from Incinerate as well as the tank. Now this means it needs to be interrupted as soon as possible. The DPS is their role to interrupt this, so it's useful if both melee DPS have their interrupts ready for Incinerate, so that there's a higher chance that you can interrupt it faster. They always need to be within range of an interrupt, so that as soon as it gets cast it can be interrupted and prevent as much damage. The healer, if it gets to 1 stack on the tank, can just heal straight through it. That's not too much of a problem. At 2 stacks or 3 stacks it will need to be cleansed or purged, depending on whatever it is you have. You need to cleanse the stack as soon as you can, otherwise the tank will take a lot of damage. It's important if the melee take any of the stacks that you cleanse one of the people that takes the damage and heal through the rest, otherwise it will burn someone down. We got really unlucky here because the tank turned and jumped in just as he fired Incinerate, which meant that both DPS actually also took stacks of Incinerate. Fortunately it was interrupted at 1 stack, so it was healable, and I managed to recover the healing. If this happens again, it's possible. Healer, you want to drop an AoE heal to make sure that no one gets too low, and just heal people up. Try and cleanse at least 1 of the stacks off someone, but then it will go on cooldown, so you probably won't be able to get more than that. If you take more than 1 stack, it's always useful to pop a defensive cooldown as a tank, or any healing cooldowns that you might have, just to help the healer's job a little bit. You can see there people's health dropping pretty quickly. That's just at 1 stack. There'll be a demonstration of 2 stacks later on. We never actually get to 3 stacks, I don't believe, but I just dropped the AoE heal down and carry on healing. Obviously the plasma arcs are continuing to come in through this, so the tank needs to continue to move the boss further away from these, so that the DPS can stay in behind and carry on putting in DPS. If you watch the tank's health now, this is the second down on the party list. This is at this is at 2 stacks of healing. You can see 2 stacks of incinerate. You can see how quickly his health just drops down each tick of it, plus any damage that the boss does via his standard attacks. Not much, but it all adds up, and the tank's health will drop really quickly. I believe he either used a med pack or a cooldown there to help drop the reduction there, which is handy. Next thing you need to be looking out for then is the fire grids all around the room. These at various points during the fight will bubble up with lava and deal about 800 to 1000 damage per tick. Obviously this needs to be avoided at all costs. However, there will be a decision at some point to go through a plasma arc or to go through the fire. The fire grids aren't that big, so best thing, if you've got to choose, go through the fire for a split second and try and find a safe point. Not all of them will bubble up. You can see their arm at a safe point, and also the big grey bits in between. I believe those are also safe points, so if you need to, just stand around those and you should be fine. Healer can normally just heal through that bit. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. As you can see here, for healing wise, the fight can get really heavy, and as a force user, my force generally gets really low, especially as the noble sacrifice move ends up taking your own health. In this fight, it's a real struggle as a healer. So keeping your force high is your top priority. So it's important, and I didn't do this so well at the beginning, to try and use your noble sacrifice move and your forced regeneration moves as much as possible. So always do the best to stand inside your own AoE healing, so that you can actually regenerate any health lost from your forced regeneration, and try and keep your force totals high, because if your force depletes, your healing will slow down and the fight will become a real nightmare. You can see there the DPS took 1 stack again, so I knew that he was going to take more damage, so I cleansed that off as quickly as possible and healed it back up again there. You can see here I go down to click on my aggro threat reduction here. This is going to be handy just to keep the ads off your back. Melee DPS, if you've got any AoE damage and stuff, just smash one of them to try and pick up the ads. They do very little damage, and you don't really need to think about killing those. Those should just be an afterthought. Just try and get their aggro off the healer, and the rest of it can just be healed through. They're not really a worry during this fight. When the boss gets down to roughly 25-20%, he can start to cast his plasma arcs instantly, or he can cast them at their maximum size straight away. So instead of them growing in size, they'll just appear instantly massive. It's important that you designate, well, it's not important, but it's a possibility that you can designate 1 DPS to focus on interrupting these, just so that you can have a bit more time to move around, and there's not so much pressure on trying to get moving, and you can just focus on DPS more. You'll see there that the boss actually turned around and started shooting at the DPS with sort of glowing guns. This is a uninterruptible channeled move he'll do throughout the fight. It's important not to confuse that for loss of aggro on the tank's part. The tank still will have aggro, but this is just a move that goes onto anyone who isn't the tank, and it will just do channeled damage, which isn't significant, and the healer will have to heal through. The important thing is that the DPS don't confuse this for loss of aggro on the tank and try and move behind him, because if he then turns around and casts Incinerate, then that's a big problem. So the boss goes down. For any just so you guys know, the loot on this boss is a Columi legs, I believe. Columi, I'm not sure, Columi of some sort. Then the next boss after this, you also get 1 piece of Columi, and the final boss drops a Columi main hand and the Rakata chest. It's actually the Columi feet for this one. So I hope this guy's helped you out, and if you've got any questions, be sure to drop them down in the comments box below. I'll see you soon. Peace.